Hi, welcome to SBR TV. I'm Peter Loshak. This is our football opening line show that we do every week with John Ryan from JohnRyanSports.com. Today we're going to take a look at the opening lines for NFL Week 11, College Football Week 12. John, how you doing?
I'm good, Peter. How are you?
Good, very good. One game, before we get started with the opening lines for next week, one game caught my eye from last week. Remember the Boise State-TCU game? It opened at about 14, and we discussed that game. We said we think that line's going to get bet up. It got bet up to 14.5 on that day. We predicted it would get bet up to 17, and it did get bet up to 17, but then Boise State wound up losing outright. So that just goes to show you, how these, line movements are not necessarily always right.
Yeah, I think it's more you got a good number, Peter, than the good side. If you like a game early in the week and it starts to move, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're onto something. As we clearly saw in that game, there was another game, Baylor and Kansas, where that line got bid up quite a bit, and then I jumped on Kansas, who almost took out Baylor too in the top 25.
That leads perfectly into the first game I want to talk to you about, the first opening line, which is the Baylor line for this next week. What are they? A 14-point home underdog against Oklahoma? Is that correct?
That's what I'm seeing. That is correct.
All right. Now, that line, and Oklahoma's off of a bye, and Baylor is, pretty much, that Griffin's great, but they're pretty one-dimensional. I got to think that this line is going to close a lot higher, and I got to think that Oklahoma is going to be a good bet, even at the closing line, if it's like 17 or even 17.5. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. And this time it might be justified, though.
Right.
This isn't a game where, Baylor, in my opinion, has a chance. I'm already seeing 15 now at Legends, so it's gone up 2 points very quickly. So 17 or 18, I think, is probably where this ends.
In a similar vein, Texas Tech and Missouri. Missouri is an 18-point home favorite, but that line just strikes me as a little bit low. I bet you this line's going to close at 21 or higher because Texas Tech, they are just falling apart. They lost by 34 to Iowa State 3 weeks ago. They lost by 60 to Oklahoma State last week. 18 points, Missouri, that's not that much, is it?
No, it's not. But that is one you have to be careful because you can't forget that Texas Tech knocked off Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Granted, that was kind of a weird game, but so was the Oklahoma State game this past week, in my opinion. Texas Tech is all over the map, very hard to read. But getting 18, that's telling me just to kind of watch and stay away for now.
Yeah, I look at this game, I think, Texas Tech either wins outright or they lose by 40. And,
I agree. Yep.
I think this line's going to close. Let me ask quickly about last week. You liked Virginia, and they did get they got a cover if you got them under 10, and then I think they got a push at the 10. I'm not sure where it closed, but this week I see that they opened 17 plus 17 on the road at Florida State. Florida State, of course, has the Florida game coming up next week. I'm wondering if you might like Virginia again here.
I actually would go with Florida State.
Yeah.
Florida State looked very good this past weekend. Clearly, with all due respect to Virginia, Florida State has the speed, the athletes, and the depth. And they're not going to lay down this week and get caught looking ahead to Florida. Right. They want to win this game convincingly, go into that with a lot of momentum. So I think Florida State would be the side.
All right, and then let's see. Another game that's interesting, of course, the Penn State game. Everyone was debating where the value was on that game. Last week it wound up falling right on the number, which might have been bad for the books. This week upcoming, I noticed they opened at a 7-point road underdog to Ohio State. I actually bet that a little bit on opening. They're down to 6.5 now, and I'm thinking that might be a line that, well, now that it's down to 6.5, I don't think it'll go anywhere necessarily. But at 7, that might be a decent bet. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so, Peter. This whole thing is just hard. I wrote 4 articles about it last week on the SBR forum, and now they get to go to the road and get away from Happy Valley,
right?
And that could be the best thing for that team to do, to get away, go play at the Horseshoe and try to upset Ohio State and keep their Big Ten title hopes alive.
Yeah, they're still a talented team with a great defense. I wouldn't be surprised if they won that game outright, actually. Then another opening, another opening line that kind of I bet on opening, and I'm not sure. Tell me what you think about it. If you think it's going to go up or down, it's Michigan at home -2.5 over Nebraska. Michigan, of course, I think is a really quality team because they have great quarterback Denard Robinson. They also have, I think, a little bit of an underrated defense. I think they have a very good defense, and I think that line 2.5 might have some value. Wouldn't be surprised if it closed closer to 4.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing to me in a way, Peter, because this past week Nebraska was a favorite on the road. Now they're on the road again against Michigan, and I really think Penn State's actually a better team than Michigan.
Really?
If you take away the scandal and everything else.
Why do you think that?
Because of the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly because of the defense.
Are there any lines that jumped out to you as lines that might have some value on the opening and that might move by closing?
One that's come up in our show quite a bit, Peter, is good old Temple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Temple was 13-point favorite on the opening against Army.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly it's a situation where Temple has the matchup advantages across the board, both sides of the ball. So that line's gone to 14 now at most of the books, and I wouldn't be, that'll easily get to 14 and a half.
You think so? Huh?
And then probably level out at 14 and a half, 15. But I think Temple here, as an opening bet for somebody that wants to play a little bit now, I think that's pretty good.
All right, yeah, let's talk very quickly before we move on to NFL about BC Notre Dame. Notre Dame is kind of an unpredictable team. So is BC a little bit, but I'm looking at this thinking that Boston College plus 24 and a half might have some value here. And I think that line, we might see it at like 22, 21 and a half by closing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that one has the potential to get supported by the dog to get supported by the public for a change. Normally we see probably 80% of the games get bid up because it's a favorite. But this is a game where I think 24 and a half, Notre Dame coming off a big win. And this is a rivalry. Boston College has not had a great season. This would be a game that if they play well and make it close could, make for a good season. So I think Boston College line will drop.
All right, let's move ahead to NFL, John. What do you say?